One of the first decisions that people need to take when they want to build a startup is to decide on the programming language they're going to use. We hear from a lot of different people, a lot of different technologies that they want to use, but we have this kind of rule. The first thing that you look at is the people you have at hand. So if you already have your own team and they know a certain language, go with that language because it will be the easiest for them to get things started and to basically build something rapidly, because that's important, of course, in an early stage startup. Some languages are better suited for certain things. You pick the right tool for the job. My name is Andreas Creten. I'm the founder and CEO of Made with Love.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Laupart, and today how Andreas Creten started an agency made up of CTOs to help up-level startups and scale-ups. All this and more on Code Story. Andreas Creten has been in tech for as long as he can remember, and even started a company when he was 18 years old. He's a family man with 3 kids, which is what he spends most of his spare time on. He likes to do carpentry as well, and he recently built a cabin in his garden for him to work remotely. His bucket list item, though, is to build a truly remote cabin in the forest someday. Andreas started an agency in the normal fashion, taking on development projects and delivering results. What happened was that businesses started asking their team to be interim CTOs and help lead the technical strategy for those companies. This is the creation story of Made with Love.
So what we do with Made with Love is we help startups and scale-ups that get into technical trouble. We're not a SaaS company, but we help SaaS companies. And we are basically a bunch of software engineers and CTOs helping out on really like the very practical level, like programming and mentoring engineering teams, but also on a higher level as a CTO at Interim, or for example, as VP engineering or engineering manager. I started Made with Love as just a normal agency, right, web development agency, but it evolved into this because customers started asking us to be the CTO at Interim in startups. I think we took our first real gig like this in 2010, and that was our first gig that we did like this kind of interim CTO. And from there it took off basically. We've been doing them over 50 times now, I believe, that we've been a CTO in a company. Basically, I was a programmer. I saw that a lot of companies have a hard time making the bridge between engineering and the business side of things. And that's really where we are with Made with Love, is to basically make that bridge. We can talk with engineers on the engineering level, but also we could talk with the investors on the board, with the founders of a company on a more business level, and we bring both of that worlds together, basically.
Tell me about the origination story, or what you would coin the MVP of Made with Love, right? I get it. You're building software for teams. You're partnering with teams. You're building the teams around the software. That first version where you stepped out and you started doing this. Tell me about that and what sort of tools you used to bring it to life.
There's two sides to that. So first of all, starting of Made with Love itself as a company, as the agency, that's like, I guess, a typical story. Somewhere in 2005 or something, in our bedrooms, basically. We started programming websites for people. That's how Made with Love started. But like how we really started doing this very focused startup thing is because investors noticed what we were doing from a technical perspective. We were helping startups like build their products. But then we switched into more like helping them build their products. I think there's a very big difference in that. So there's a lot of agencies still today that actually build a product as a project, let's say, and then when the project is done, they're done with building a product. But of course, in a product world, that's impossible. The product is never done. And so we really changed our role from being project-oriented to you kind of rent a team. You could say start a team as a service. You rent a team from our side. Hopefully you also have some people on your side, and if you don't have those people on your side, we will basically urge you to hire them. And so that we can work together, that we can train the people in the company that we're dealing with, and that we can bring them up to a technical level where we believe they should be, so that we also can leave after a while. And that's really what we do. And I guess, like I mentioned, the first gig that we did was the Next Web, which is like a very big blog platform. And actually, a funny thing from that is it was built in WordPress, which of course I think it was 2010, was still a lot more immature than it is today. And for example, one of the things that originated from that is the WordPress command line interface that I built. So it's now part of WordPress itself, but that originated from the fact that I had to manage 50 WordPress blogs all by hand, because that's how you do WordPress stuff. You have to click and do things in the interface or in the database. And so I was totally fed up with that, and I wrote a tool to do that from the command line so we could integrate it in a CI/CD pipeline. And it's these kind of things that we did and that people started noticing, so that they also started looking at us to get help on different projects. Another example of how we got known is we've been very early in the Laravel community. So the Laravel framework, we've been very early involved in that, and also we picked some core contributors from the framework that we hired to work for Made with Love, and so that's also how we got a lot of traction in dealing with these kind of projects. Yeah.
Okay, so with any first version of anything, right, you have to make certain decisions and trade-offs about how you proceed, right? How you build things, how you approach problems, and I hear some of that in, how you describe building the WordPress, CI/CD command line tool. But I would love to know a little more about some of those decisions and trade-offs you had to work through, and the process of actually working through them, and how you cope with the decisions.
Even today, every project we have to take these kind of decisions. We are very pragmatic, or we try to be very pragmatic in these kind of things. And also we really look also from the economical side of things. One of the first decisions that people need to take when they want to build a startup is to decide on the programming language they're going to use. And we hear from a lot of different people, a lot of different technologies that they want to use, but we have this kind of rule. The first thing that you look at for which programming language to use is the people you have at hand. So if you already have your own team and they know a certain language, go with that language, because it will be the easiest for them to get things started and to basically build something rapidly, because that's important, of course, in an early stage startup. Second, you pick the right tool for the job. Some languages are better suited for certain things. For example, if you want to do real-time stuff, you might be better off for a programming language like Node.js. If you want to build normal web applications, I guess PHP might be a good choice. If you're going to do data science, probably you'll end up with Python, right? But a very important aspect for me as well to take into account is the availability of developers for the language that you're choosing. We see a lot of companies actually struggle or fail with hiring developers because they have chosen technology which basically there was no developers for in the market that they're looking for them. We're dealing obviously a lot with Belgian companies or European companies. For example, if you're going to start a company using Golang or Go in Europe, there's very, very limited people that actually know the language and that know it very well. And so these kind of decisions are typically not something that a CTO thinks about, because they think in technology terms. And this is really the edge that we like to bring in, is like to also think from the business perspective. Like, okay, if we want to hire 12 people locally doing Go development, is that realistic, right? And it turns out most of the time that it's not the case. And then, of course, the first thing that we will do when we start building something is to make a budget, which is also something that CTOs don't very often do. So we really think about these kind of things. And then if you're talking about really the building of the tool itself, we think there you need to make also the right choices. Pick a good framework that takes a lot of stuff out of your hands. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Focus on the right things. I think a very good example of that is probably every SaaS startup has to build a billing system, right? At one point in time, because they want to invoice their customers. But you don't need it at launch, right? If you're going to have maybe in the first month, you'll maybe have hopefully you have a lot of customers, but to be realistic, maybe in the first month you onboard 10 customers, that's already a very good thing, I guess. And maybe then the next month, maybe 20. why would you build a billing system and it takes you quite some time to integrate it? Just do it by hand until it becomes painful. When it becomes too painful, then you automate it. And a billing system, of course, now you have things like Stripe billing that take most of the pain away there. But it goes with other things as well. So do things manually until they hurt. And then when they hurt too much, then you only automate it. And the same for like ID card verification. You can do that with plenty of services that are very expensive, but you can also do that manually to start with. And I think users still are okay with waiting a bit to get approved. And that's really something that we preach to the companies we deal with, is really focus on your IP, on the core value that you're going to bring to the customer. And all these side things, of course, they're important, but they're not your main focus in the beginning.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted VCSOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com. So from that, we'll say from the early days to now, right? How have you progressed your agency, your approach, essentially your organization? How have you matured it? How have you figured out, okay, this is the next way we need to do things, or this is the next most important thing we need to address within Made with Love?
So there was a couple of things. First of all, it's all organic. So we I think in 2014, we grew by one person a month. Today we're 20 people. And that was very aggressive. We were a small company. Luckily, we had a lot of documentation, so for us it was very easy to onboard people, but we kind of underestimated the cultural impact of that as well. So that's something that when I look back at it, might not have been the wisest thing to do. Basically, what we do is try to grow organically. Actually, today we say we don't want to grow. We maybe want to grow with 1 or 2 people a year. And there have been some points in the lifetime of Made with Love, which is for 14 years now this month, where, for example, we decided. Like every agency in the beginning, we were also doing like hosting, like website hosting and stuff like that. So I guess that was the first hard decision to sunset the hosting part of things. We used our own framework and our own CMS system back in the days as well. And at one point in time, we decided to basically stop supporting it. First of all, we stopped using it, and then a few years later, we decided to stop supporting it. We see a lot of other companies that are doing agency work that are still maintaining these kind of old things. We actually put a hard cut, and sometimes it was very hard for the companies that we were dealing with. But for us, it was better as a company to do that. And now we use open source frameworks, and we don't have that problem anymore. And then we actually did, I think the most important decision that we made was really to focus on the startups and the scale-ups. So we're not doing any corporate work anymore. We really want to be in this kind of niche, and we really set some kind of rules for ourselves, like what's the stuff that we want to do and what's the stuff we don't want to do. And for us, it's very important, for example, that we can work on the core product. So we don't want to work on like utilities that are used by a team. We really want to work on the product that generates the revenue. And so by defining these kind of very clear rules on like what we want to do, it was rather easy for ourselves to basically grow and be the company that we are today. And today most of our leads actually come from investors, because of course we work with startups and scale-ups. There is always investors involved, or most of the times investors involved in those companies, and they see what we do, and they actually start recommending us to other companies in their portfolio. That's basically how we get our business today. And actually, somewhere in 2016, one of the investors that was involved in the company that we were working with asked us to do technical due diligence on a new deal they wanted to close, and then we realized, okay, that's maybe an interesting thing for us to get involved in, because as a company we know pretty well how a scale-up needs to go in terms of technology, and so we started doing that. First, like really ad hoc, because an investor asked us to do so, and then actually 3 years ago we decided to go all in on that. I mean, of course, we're still doing other stuff, but today we do one due diligence a week. Yeah? So we are very active in that. So we review a lot of companies technically, and I guess it has been also a very important step in where we are with Made with Love. And then the most recent step, I guess it was in the beginning of the pandemic, 2020. We decided to stop doing our product management work. So we used to be, and my co-founder is a more of a product person. He left the company. I mean, he sold his shares by now. But basically, he was more of a product person. I'm more of a technical person, and so we were doing both product management and the technical stuff. And in 2020, we decided to really focus on the technical side of things, because that's where we add the most value. And we basically are going to split off, or we actually stopped taking on product management work under the name of Made with Love. We've made a new brand called Smooth Sailing. And we're actually branching it off like as other legal entity by the end of June to become an independent company, and there is someone else leading that. So I guess those have been the most important kind of milestones in what we do, and we are really, really focused now, and that's what I really like. People know what they need to come to us for, and I love that.
Well, let's switch to team then. So how did you build your team of engineers, CTOs, builders? How did you go about building that team, and what did you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
So we have an awesome team that's really, and our customers also say that, and new joiners, a lot of people say like, like from the outside it looks like you're a very cool company, but then when you're in it, it's indeed like who you are. We look for a couple of things in people. First of all, we have a very good check on the culture. It needs to be cultural add, not only cultural fit. So we try to find people that bring an extra edge to our team. That's very important for us. And there is a couple of things that traits that we look into people. For example, we want them to be responsible, so they need to be able to manage themselves. So we don't have like account managers or whatever in between them and the customer. They're like one-on-one communication, so they need to be communicating very well as well. And for example, how we did that in the beginning, and today we're still looking at that, is we were looking for public speakers. So we were looking for people that would climb on a stage and explain like on a conference what technology is about. And the people that we have in our company today are still people with that capability. So they are very well at explaining themselves, explaining to non-technical people about technology, but they're also still programmers. And that's a very unique kind of team that we have, like to have both that kind of verbal capability of explaining yourself in an easy, non-too technical manner, and also being very, very deep on the technical side of things. And then we look for like T-shapes. So we want our people to be full stack, or at least have a notice of everything, but with a very deep leg. So we want them to also specialize really in something. So like people who are more into infrastructure, there's very specialized front-end people, back-end people.
So let's talk about scalability. And with an agency, scalability is always a topic, but it's not exactly, spoken of with an agency the same way. So I'm just going to ask it generically. Did you build this to scale efficiently from day one, or, have you been fighting this as you've grown and gained traction?
We have always been a remote company. I think that's also important to mention. So we had a lot of documentation from the beginning. So we actually had like people in different countries from our second year, I think. So it was required to have documentation. And because we had like very good documentation on how the company runs and what we expect from our people, and because we were already async, it was actually very easy for us to scale things up. But it's not that we had it in mind, like it needs to go this way. But that's just how it went. And actually today we say we don't want to scale up too much. We don't want to grow too much anymore, because I think I really like to be involved in projects myself still. And I think if we grow over like the 25, 30 people, because we have been 25 people to be exact, when you go over that, you kind of lose control over your team, and you have to start having some kind of layer of middle management, and that's something that we want to avoid. So I really like it small and basically a boutique, very niche agency, and that's what we are. And we're still growing, but not in the people count, but in the revenues and the kind of projects that we do.
Well then, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
Definitely the team. We have a bunch of really, really good developers in our team. And we deal a lot with legacy and technical debt as well. So we most of the projects that we get our hands into dirty on basically are projects where shit is hitting the fan, and the people in the company actually don't know how to get out of it. And then we come in and fix things. And so being in that role is very demanding of our team, and you need to be very confident of yourself as well to be able to step into something like that and kind of even demine it in most of the situations, and to make a plan on how to move forward. And that's like with our team, every single person in the team, I can trust them to send them basically into that minefield, and they'll manage, and I don't need to go after them every 10 minutes to check in how they're doing. And that's really a very, very good asset. I can just run the company, and I don't have to worry about like my people doing their job, and that's a really awesome feeling.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
You could say mistake. I took a sabbatical for a year from Edward Love in 2015, I guess. And I went on an adventure to start a company in San Francisco. So I moved there as well for half a year. I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but it was the best year for Major Love when I was not there. And so it made me realize that when I came back, because I was fed up with being in a product company, when I came back, I realized that probably I was sometimes even too hands-on as a manager. So I took kind of a step back, and that really helped with creating the space for the people, the freedom for them to bring in their own knowledge as well, or even their own techniques that they master, and to let them really decide like how they want to approach a project, rather than always trying to put my way of working into it. And that really, that really opened. I mean, and I didn't realize it at that time, but I think maybe a year later that I realized, okay, this is basically what changed over that time period that I was away. That basically they got more responsibility, and by doing that, we've become a better company. And since then, I'm not that involved anymore into all projects. I used to be involved in all projects. Now I'm involved in my own projects.
Well, what does the future look like for Made with Love and for your team?
More of the same, I would say. We have a couple of projects that we're doing. So first of all, like I mentioned, we're splitting off that product management company. So basically, they are on their own feet, and they also have grown massively in the past 2 years since we started building it. I think there's 6 people now, and they'll soon be 9. For Metrolab itself, I think the most important thing is we want to scale it up a bit, maybe to 25 people. We want us to grow in the type of customers that we have. So we want to have more interesting projects that contribute to society. I think that's very important for us. And then we have a couple of internal things that we want to make public. Actually, I'm putting the last hands this week on a book about how we run the company. So that's one thing. And second, we're building what we call the content platform. There's no real name for it yet, but it's like some kind of handbook or not a handbook, the reasons why we do certain things in a certain way. So very easy example is why we think pull requests are important or code reviews are important, and why we believe every company should be doing them. Another is, for example, on pair programming. Why do we believe in pair programming? What value does it bring? Because a lot of managers, for example, they think it's a waste of time. But if you can have like a good, let's say, independent source telling a manager like why is it important to do pair programming, then they might be convinced of doing it. And that's the value that we want to bring public, probably in the next year. And we're currently writing the articles with the team. And on our retreat in September, we're going to give that a major push. We're going to spend a lot of time writing more articles on that, on a variety of topics.
Well, let's switch to you, Andreas. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or persons that you look up to and why.
I used to say Jason Free from Basecamp. They totally let me down with their whole diversity or politics thing, but definitely they shaped a lot of how I built the company, with mainly Getting Real, their first book. I think second is, again, our team. I really listen to how they would like to work, and I do a lot of one-on-ones with them, and they really shape how we run the company as well. Other than that, I don't think there was like one specific person that I really look up to.
So we talked about a mistake, but a little bit different spin. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you do different, or where would you consider taking a different approach?
Lots of people ask me that, and I'm actually writing a chapter for another book, and it's the title of the book is Letters to Future Founders. And there also I'm like kind of exploring like what's the kind of stuff that I would do different. And I guess it would be mainly my personal life. I don't think if it Made with Love that there was a lot of things that I would do different. Maybe to go directly remote because we had an office for a while. But from a personal perspective, I think a lot of people when they start a business, they think they have to work like crazy amount of hours. That's not necessary, and it's going to destroy your personal life. I almost lost my relationship over it, and life is more important than running a business, and I think that's a very big lesson that I learned. And now with the 3 kids, I also take a lot of time to take care of them while my wife is working, for example, and basically enjoy the time with them. Like in the weekend, I rarely open my computer. In the week, I'll be there when they go to bed. I'll be there when they wake up. I work maybe a bit later in the night and to catch up with some stuff. But I really organize my life around them. Because I've seen other kids when I was young where their dads were never there, and that's not the kind of dad I want to be. So I think that's an important lesson to give.
Well, last question, Andreas. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing, or let's say the next big company or agency or thing. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Focus. I think that's a really important thing. I'm mentoring also other younger founders, and I'm mentoring two people right now, and one of them is like, he started the company 2 years ago, and now we really want to start another company and leave the first company over to someone else. But That's possible, of course, but the question is like, what do you want to achieve in life? And what we do in Made with Love, I've been doing it for 14 years. I've been focusing on Made with Love mainly, and recently I decided to only focus on it. And that really helps, makes my life a lot simpler. I sold like all the stakes I had in other stuff, or where I was involved in, to really focus on one thing and to spend all my energy in that. And of course, it takes years to encourage and I guess patience to build something. For us, it also took, I guess, 6-7 years until we really had this kind of product market fit, if you want, that exists for a service company. But then it really paid off, fighting so hard to find our place. And we have had people where I would say competitors or companies that we were looking up to, and I went there telling what we are doing, and the founders of those companies would like break us down, like, oh, that's never going to work, and the startup is never going to hire you. And now if you see what we're doing, I always think back of these kind of moments, and then I laugh about those people that were not saying actually what we wanted to do, and I guess that's the most important thing. Like focus, it takes patience. And courage to pursue building a good agency. And maybe a last thing is bootstrapping is always better than getting external investment. It's true for startups if it's possible, but especially for agencies, it's easy to take money off the table, obviously, to bring in someone externally, but that means that you lost your business. And we actually did it. So we sold part of the business to an external fund, but we bought it back because we have basically overgrown them, let's say, in terms of how we want to run the business. So if it's not necessary, don't do it.
That's great advice. Well, Andreas, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of Made with Love.
You're welcome.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.